Hello and welcome, Exiles, to the day 5/6 update to the character. Yesterday we didn't have an update because I spent the majority of the day prepping to swap to Indigon, and then I did the swap and it ultimately was a bust. It was too much mana ramp for not enough payoff. It felt like at the end of the mana ramp that I could get to with the setup I had, it was roughly about the same damage, which just made it completely not worth it. Super rare item. It was going to spike the build cost. So ultimately, in the end, this is kind of a win for the build because the high end of the build is not going to be contingent on a omega expensive item, because that's what would happen to that item due to its rarity if that was a required item. That being said, the character still is going to end up being quite tanky and hopefully deal some decent damage as we get our final pieces of gem levels. +1 corruption on Essence Drain. Eventually, I'd like to get a +1 on here. There's ultimately the ability to get the Prism of Disbelief or Belief. I forget what the jewel's called, but it gives Essence Drain specific levels, stuff like that. Good percent damage on our focus or good percent damage on our wand. There's a lot more min-maxing to be done on the character. Now, let's talk about the specific upgrades we made to the character that is different from the last time we were here. Number one is we got quite a bit better mana sustain, and we did that via getting mana regen rate on our rings and a little bit of extra life where we could on our rings. And I guess technically you could end up having like a life on your belt, because our mana regen is tied to how much base life we have. We get 6% of our base life, and then mana regen rate will be a multiplier for that. Now, specifically for making these rings, which have high mana regen rate, life, cast speed, and res, what I did is I bought rings that were magic with a life roll and a decent mana regen rate roll, and I did a greater essence of sorcery to guarantee the cast speed. This is how I like to do ring crafts. The greater essence of sorcery, I think they've been around 2 to 4x roughly each time I've looked at them. They might have spiked, or they might still be at that price. I'm not 100% sure, but guarantees a cast speed roll, and it's about a 50-50 to get like 15 or higher cast speed. All the cast speed rolls, from what I can tell, are basically equal weighting. It seems like I consistently get T1 just as much as I get the T4 mod. So it's just a cost, a coin toss as to what you get from it in terms of cast speed. Now, that goes over the basics of the main gear piece changes was these rings, and then ultimately I upgraded my shield and my boots for higher ES, and I corrupted a better version of its Series of Sane. This version has up to gain 18% instead of gain 15. How do you end up with a situation like this? It is a corruption outcome. There are 4 possible corruption outcomes. Option number 1, no change. Option number 2, add a socket. Option number 3, add an enchant like Spirit, mana regenerate. There's other enchants you can get. And then option number 4 will divine the item randomly and then attach a either like a 0.8 multiplier or a 1.2 multiplier. It'll go a positive multiplier or negative multiplier, and you'll end up with a roll range that this thing could say anywhere from like 8% gain all the way to 18, and the bypass mod could say anywhere from bypass 8 to bypass 12, I believe. Now, min-max wise, I would want this to say bypass 12 because that's more damage reduction for the character. But for right now, we only have bypass 9. I decided to settle on this one because it had good rarity and it had max roll gain. Ultimately, late game, we're going to want to get this all the way to be bypass 12 because it's just more damage reduction for the character. Outside that, we're also going to be hopefully looking at getting a higher ES chest piece. You can get this chest piece all the way up to be 1,000 or maybe even 1,100 with a good corruption for your ES chest piece. And then belt, we either are going to be looking at an ingenuity or getting high life on it. So that goes over the basic gear changes. As for the tree changes, not too much has changed. It's starting to get really hard to get XP in these higher levels. Right now we're level 91, working our way towards 92. The XP starts to really slow down. Right now, I'm just kind of in the phase where I'm tagging on 15% small ES nodes here and here is probably what I'm going to be doing. Late game of the character, I may consider anointing Final Barrage, unspecking these nodes and unspecking these nodes, and potentially going over to this jewel socket and this jewel socket. When you start getting some really min-max jewels, those options start to get a lot more tempting. That is on my to-do list of possibilities. I really want to see this character to get to 20,000 ES. That's a rough goal I have for myself. I think that would be a doable number, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll see about it. Now, of course, when I talk about 20,000 ES, you may notice we're playing with Explode. A lot of people ask me, Explode versus the Jewel Socket. I think it's ultimately up to your own personal preference. I've been enjoying the explodes, they're pretty satisfying, but I think in terms of min-max power of the character, it's the jewel socket. Like if I'm gonna do boss farming with this character, I'd much rather have the jewel socket versus having the explode, because explode doesn't give you value in a boss fight, whereas the jewel socket would help you get quite a bit more ES, some extra damage, stuff like that. So that's the sort of progression of the character we're looking at. Outside of all that, let's go ahead and give you guys a showcase of what this looks like in a map. Now I'm going to swap to controller because I have been playing controller pretty much this entire time since a day or two ago, and I just think it feels smoother. I quite like it a lot more than mouse and keyboard. I think it feels way more relaxed. I can kind of just rest my shoulders and enjoy the gameplay. Currently on stream, we're working towards our first Arbiter, and I don't know, I think the red beam, I think I've already found this citadel multiple times. I think the last one I need is I think it's a white beam for the Act 1 citadel that I've been working towards, but hopefully we find that soon. I might end up caving and just buying the fragments because I really want to do Arbiter and I want to start doing some of these other boss fights. But for right now, we're going to just keep steadily working our way towards these late game bosses. So I'll give you a showcase of what this character looks like on mapping. We have an augury here. This layout isn't the best for Chaos Dot. Ultimately, the closed, like narrow passageway layouts are just not ideal for the character in terms of like, if I had an open layout, I could fully expect the Contagion to easily like gather all these packs together and then get it to spread throughout them. But since there's all these walls, the AI of these monsters are not going to know to like say, hey, go after that guy. And so it's like, I'm just saying that these sorts of layouts are not necessarily ideal for Contagion spreads. It's really unfortunate, but sometimes that's what happens in terms of like the layouts you get. So it is what it is. Aside from that, I've been trying out using Contagion with a higher level. A lot of people ask me about this. I don't know if I clarified this. Basically, at one point, Contagion was way too much mana cost at a high level. So I at one point de-leveled it all the way to level 1 in order to save on mana cost. And until I got these rings with life and mana regenerate, I just wouldn't be able to sustain it. So I would say if you're earlier on in the character, do a level 1 Contagion with the normal setup I have for the Unleash, Magnified AoE, Arcane Tempo. But right now what I'm trying, which I'm not convinced on, I'm not going to recommend it yet because I still want to do another day of gameplay with it. I'm trying out Magnified AoE, Arcane Surge, Derange, and Inspiration. So I'm trying to add some level of DPS to the Contagion with a Derange support, and then I got a leveled up Contagion. I actually corrupted a +1. I was trying to make it a 6 link, and then I corrupted a +1 on it, so I'll take it. Fun fact about corruptions, if you corrupt a +1, you can still level it up after the fact. So this was a level 1 gem or whatever that I put a 5 link on. I corrupted the +1 level, and when I did the gem level 20 on it, it retained the +1 corruption. So later on, we're going to try to get a +1 corruption on our Essence Drain for another gem level. That's how you do it. You corrupt it at a lower level, and then you use the expensive level 20 gem to level it up. Now, anyways, I've been trying this sort of setup right now with having it deal some level of damage. I'm not particularly convinced right now. We get good uptime on Arcane Surge because it does cost a lot of mana and it procs Arcane Surge fairly consistent. You'll notice throughout this map we have good Arcane Surge uptime, but losing the Unleash, which is one of the big mana multipliers, I kind of felt like I had to drop that, or it'd be too much of a mana cost on the skill. I'm not sure it's worth it. I guess I could ultimately swap Unleash for Derange. In fact, let me try that right now while I'm thinking about it and see how that feels. Because I'm still working through what is the right way to do this Contagion. Because I like the idea of it dealing some level of damage. Before, it just wasn't worth it because of how much it was just draining our mana. But I guess I have I have Inspiration on this, so we can see throughout this map if it feels like it's draining us too much. Losing the Derange is only about a 16% more damage. Speaking of Derange, late game, I want to put that on Essence Drain as one of the damage supports. I've obviously been playing with Chain just because it's a good time in terms of mapping, but I would like to get to the point where I can test, like when we do bosses, there's probably going to be a single target setup that doesn't involve Chain. Chain just really feels good for mapping in my opinion. So I just like it for that specific purpose. But yeah, I might end up doing this. I might end up doing a middle ground of having Unleash, but if I have Inspiration on it, it should be fine is what I'm thinking right now. Also, shout out to Augury and having things that aren't like really time loss levers. It's a pretty big improvement from what we had before. I guess I should have picked a different map, because this map really doesn't highlight the build as well as like other maps, but you know what, I think it's fine. I think it's probably a good thing to highlight the maps that are not ideal for the build, because these sorts of layouts where you just really can't benefit from the Contagion spread in chains as much, they do happen, and you kind of are forced to run them sometimes. It is what it is. I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but the difference in satisfaction of playing the build when you're running a nice open layout where you can actually get those explode chain Contagion chains going versus a closed layout like this where the enemies just are kind of walled off from each other is a pretty stark contrast of what it looks like. All right, so let's go ahead and look. We have a boss here. We do a Sigil of Power. We proc our curse on it. We proc our Contagion, and now we're just chilling. We're just sitting here in the Sigil of Power, just casting on the boss. And I guess he's gonna do this thing, but our Contagion still does damage while he's in the air. Cool. So yeah, that's what it looks like for the build, doing a boss fight in the current state at level 91. And Algorand probably wasn't the best map to showcase the character, but you know, it just happened to be the next map in the layout, and I didn't check beforehand. It is what it is. So yeah, that is the current setup of the character. As for something that I keep getting repeat questions about, I'm going to answer this again. I know I've done this in previous videos, but I'm going to go over it again real quick here. For reservations, we have 100 spirit. That is from the campaign. That is all you need. You do not need additional spirit. On weapon set 1, you're going to have your Withering Presence, and you're going to have your Blasphemy Temp Chains. And then on weapon set 2, you're going to have Convalescence, and you're going to have Blink. The reason we can take advantage of all these reservations at the same time is Blink and Convalescence are both cooldown based reservations where their cooldown will continue to cycle while they're in the offhand. So for example, I can blink and the cooldown will go even when I'm on my main hand, and then I can weapon swap back and blink again. And how I do that, for the record, I prefer to use my Despair, which is set to weapon set 2, because that's where we benefit from all the curse nodes on the tree, and I animation cancel. So I start the cast, and I instantly go for the... Sorry, I start the cast, and I press the wrong button. I start the cast of Despair, and then I instantly go to press the B button to blink, and it goes straight to the blink without actually doing the animation for the curse. Another thing is, people have been asking me, is Despair bugged? I don't see the animation. The thing is, once you get these passives over here, which have the faster curse activation, these nodes plus the focus curse support makes it an instantaneous proc with no delay. And right now, and this worked the same way in the 0.1 patch, the animation just doesn't occur. Hopefully they get the animation to occur, but you can test it out on enemies. You can see, even in the boss fight I did, you didn't see the animation of the Despair on the ground, but you saw the curse proc. You could see the debuff, the minus 40 whatever res was on the boss, but the animation itself doesn't play. Like, you can see the start, like the little purple animation of my character. I'm obviously spending the mana. That is another weird thing that people have been asking about a lot. Outside of all that, the last and final question, how do you get your character to low life? You take this helmet right here, Visage of Aya, you pop it on, it gives you Eldritch Battery, which makes you lose all of your energy shield, and then you did get a channeled, specifically a channeled spell skill. You put life tap on it, and you channel to spend your life down, and then you swap your helmets back, and that will lock you on low life. And the reason we are doing that is for this node here, which has another 30% faster start of recharge when you're not on full life, and for the passive that is over here, which gives 20% cast speed when on low life. So that's 35% of your total life number. So take your life number, multiply it by 0.35. It needs to be that number or lower to get the extra cast speed. And it's part of making this character feel better, where you can get your Essence Drain and your Contagion off in quick succession. So yeah, that is the idea for the character. Hopefully I've gone over all the basics. Now, real quick, I just want to say I have updated the planner with now a late game gear set. Early, mid, and late game, this is going to be focusing on all my min-max upgrades, and I'm going to keep the mid, early, and the campaign gear as is. This is what we started with on day one when we basically SSF most our gear. This is what we did when we started to buy a couple of ES pieces, and we swapped straight over to ES and got out of Mind Over Matter. The mid gear is what we did throughout the campaign as we were getting to T15s. And late game is going to be our min-max pieces where we're trying to push towards 20k ES, that sort of thing. Now, another thing I want to say on this is I have tried to import. They added a function for importing your POB in case people wanted a POB. And currently, I don't know if it's something I did on my end. I did the update, but whenever I go to import my character, it throws me this error. I'll message local identity about it. I don't know why it's doing that per se. But anyways, I don't really... For me to put the character in a POB, it's harder for me to manually import a lot of the stuff than it is for the planner. So I'm not going to do that until the import function is working for me. But yeah, I will have that hopefully eventually, if we can resolve that issue with importing the characters for those people that want the POB as well. But yeah, don't have that yet. Just a little disclosure, I did look at doing that today and it was not working for me. So anyways, this is the update number 5, day number 5/6. We kind of lost a day with the Indigon setup. It didn't really work. Spent a lot of time specking into it and then specking out of it. But hopefully you guys are okay with a bit of a delayed update. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out. Have a good one.